Lee, I wanted to ask about some of the biggest successes you've seen in CTV today, verticals, KPIs, sort of what's happening that's encouraging, and at the same time, some of the challenges
Sure.
associated with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the successes so far are really around businesses where there's a very defined target. And when I say defined, really, a precise, narrow target. Some of the early successes that I had seen in this space were with things like American Express, where they're trying to reach people of a certain credit score and income level. They're not looking to, have a mass message. And then most recently, it tends to be a lot of retail and QSR that I think are having success in this space, where there's a defined geographic footprint that they really want to focus on. I'm currently working with a retailer that is in 52 markets, and yet in some of these markets, they only have one or two stores, and therefore it doesn't make sense to do traditional broadcast television or even zoned cable in some instances. So addressable TV and connected TV give them a way to use television cost effectively. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the growth come from, is advertisers that couldn't otherwise justify using television, despite the power and the impact and the persuasive nature of TV, are finding that this is a tool that allows them to use it more cost effectively.
Now, what about closing the loop around measurement and attribution? And there's some decent pricing around this inventory. What do you as a buyer want in terms of attribution, measurement? Where does that stand, and what do you hope to get?
I mean, I think that is one of the challenges. I think that everybody is still learning how to best determine the contribution of connected TV. I think a lot of advertisers right now are buying largely on faith. There's enough data that points in the direction of, gee, I need to be catching that streaming audience. I need to be reaching the people that have migrated their viewing from traditional sources to streaming services. Unfortunately, many of those streaming services are subscription and not advertiser supported. So, you've got to look for, where can I catch them elsewhere in their streaming behavior? It's not, unfortunately, though, it's not like digital display and even other forms of digital video, because you've got a lean back audience. They're not necessarily clicking on ads, even when that capability exists within an app. So right now, that is a big challenge, the measurement challenge of, what's it contributing? And even in a more simplistic way, less about ROI, but how am I really adding reach to my overall video mix? What's the contribution of connected TV within the video mix? Am I getting reach, or is it just additional frequency against people I'm already reaching through other video sources? I think that's one of the things we're wrestling with. It gets back to one of the biggest issues in the entire industry, which is we need cross-platform measurement. It's becoming increasingly urgent that we get to a place where we have reliable cross-platform measurements, so that we know simple things like the reach and frequency of my campaign. And then even within that, given the more precise targeting opportunities that you can do through connected TV, am I reaching more valuable segments of my audience better than I would through other video means? So I think those are all big issues. And you touched on also one of the bigger ones is pricing. So when programmatic first took off, one of the things that I think helped drive a lot of spending in that direction was it was very cost efficient. It was really cheap versus other forms of display. And so it wasn't surprising that it was outperforming other forms of display. But as we've moved into connected TV, as much as the inventory seems almost infinite, in reality, it's not. And I think that's impacting the pricing. And that's one of the things that advertisers need to look at closely, and agencies, is what kind of a CPM am I paying relative to my other forms of video? And frankly, have I exhausted the reach potential of things like traditional cable TV in a way that help me justify the premium that the targeted connected TV might provide?
Which kind of leads to the next question about inventory quality. So, clearly there's some premium inventory publishers that we know, household names, but there's a lot of other inventory. What are your thoughts about inventory quality, the role of the DSPs, the role of the verification companies? Where do you think inventory quality stands, and what do you as a buyer want to see?
As a buyer, I think we need to get a better handle on the inventory, and have a better understanding of that, not just after the fact, but really prior to making the commitment. It is one of the, I'd call it, easily one of the top three issues in this space is, what is the quality of inventory that I'm going to get? And I think people that come at it from a digital perspective, where, audience buying has been routine for a while, are like, what does anybody really care about, the inventory? An impression is an impression as long as it's delivered against the right person. But that's not really the case when you get into the television realm. Context can matter. We're not necessarily looking at, a click-through rate. We're looking at, what kind of exposure am I getting, and what do I think the audience is doing when my message is delivered to them? Is it in programming that I think they're paying full attention to, and therefore are more likely to be influenced by my television ad? And that's one of the, the whole inventory thing is right now a bit of a black box with most suppliers. They will list a huge long list of inventory sources, whether it be the different platforms they source the inventory on or the different content providers, but they're very vague in terms of, how much of this am I going to get? And arguably, there are some providers out there that have a better quality inventory. The other thing, that I think sometimes sellers underestimate is that the buyer is often looking to just understand the value they should put on it. What is this thing like? And that helps me determine whether I'm getting a fair price for it. If it's just Hamburger Helper, cheap impressions, then I feel like I should be getting it at one price, versus if I'm getting in, some of the, water cooler, top long form programming that everybody's engaged in and talking about, that might carry a different price. So understanding inventory sources, understanding what I'm going to get as a buyer is really a key issue. And I think almost all buyers, certainly those who come from a multimedia perspective, are asking that question, is what's the inventory? And I think sellers need to be prepared with a strong answer to that, a clear answer that helps the buyer determine how to value this stuff.